Morning folks, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and what I thought I would do today is I've had a lot of folks ask me about the Rokon, and I've also had a lot of people ask me about kitting the Rokon as far as taking it out on a trek or a scout and what kind of emergency supplies I carry on this Rokon. Now generally in the summertime I don't carry a whole lot other than a backpack that's on my back, but in the winter time I do put a little bit more kit on the back of this Rokon that we'll talk about in a minute, as well as carrying my normal backpack that I would have for a trek or a scout. So I've got some heavier duty emergency type supplies because I have conveyance, and that conveyance offers you more comfort items that you wouldn't normally be able to carry on your back. So we'll talk about that real quick, and we'll kind of lay out what I've got on the back of this Rokon, and you'll see that it's really not a lot more than what I normally carry. My fire starting and utility items would still be in my pockets, in my haversack, belt pouch, what have you, but I'm going to increase my comfort level by adding things like a more robust shelter and heavier tools. Stay with me and we'll get started. Okay, so what I do here is I've just got a cargo rack that's an aftermarket rack on my Rokon, and it has a set of tools on it that are on the outside so I can get to them the quickest, that I can carry away from the Rokon because I have a shoulder strap, and it's basically just a Campcraft axe and saw bag that's got a strap on it so that I can carry those tools away. So along with my belt knife, a buck saw, folding buck saw, and a 2-pound axe, I can do a lot of work with that, and I may not want to carry these all the time. If I were just carrying a small backpack, I may choose to go with a smaller axe or hatchet, and I definitely may not go with both the buck saw and the axe. But along with my belt knife, that gives me a pretty good set of tools, and I generally have a smaller knife on me as well, either a pocket knife or a small mora of some sort that I can use for finer carving tasks. So that gives me a pretty well-rounded set of tools, and I don't have to add a whole lot to the Rokon to begin with to get that. Now, in the front of this package here, which sits right up underneath this seat well, I have a bush pot with some coffee, a little bit of fat wood stuffed inside there, and a rag to clean things out with, and then just a small cup as well. So I've got a way to disinfect and cook food, disinfect my water, all those types of things I have with this bush pot bag. And you could use any metal container for that, as long as you've got a spare larger metal container that's bigger than what you might have in your backpack or in conjunction with like a canteen or something like that. And that just sits right in the front here. Like I said, this just happens to be the right size that it nests right underneath this rail, so that when I shove this bag up against it, it's all in one spot and it's held securely there. So that makes that real simple. Okay, so all that leaves on the back of the Rokon is a single package, and again, I just got it hooked in here with a simple net. You can buy these anywhere on the internet. It's just a simple cargo net that I've got stretched over the top of this rack. And then I've got a 6x8 canvas tarp here, again, cheap enough to buy at any hardware store. And my emergency gear is rolled up inside this tarp. So let's pull this off and throw it on the ground, and we'll unroll that. All right, this portion's pretty easy. I've just got things wrapped up in here so that they stay relatively dry even if it gets muddy. So the tarp is 6 foot by 8 foot, and then I've got a wool blanket roll inside that tarp. And this is a queen size wool blanket. Now inside this queen wool blanket, we've got about 100 feet of paracord and an emergency space blanket, reusable. A spare pair of wool socks, and a bag that has a couple things in it. It has another roll of paracord, probably another 75-80 feet, a ferrocerium rod, and some fat wood. So now with this, I have the makings of a shelter easy enough. I have the reflectivity of the space blanket here. I have a tarp, and I have a heavy duty wool blanket. With that, I can construct a pretty decent shelter in some pretty inclement weather. And again, all of this fits very neatly into things and rolls up into a pretty good wad or small ball there that I can put on the Rokon. So when we're done, everything goes right back on top of here in one nice neat little package, ready for the next time that I need to use it. And it works out really, really well. So this has been the kit that I've been using, running around trap line scouting, things like that a little bit this winter so far. I haven't had to use it yet, but if I do, I'm confident that I've got shelter, a way to make fire, a way to take care of my water for disinfection and for rapid rewarming from the inside, and I should be all set. Okay, so keeping emergency survival shelters very simplistic. We have two 55-gallon trash bags we filled with debris that are 4 inches thick compressed. That battles conduction from the ground. We have a nice big wool blanket we can throw on. We have a 6x8 tarp over the top of us that is heavy duty enough that it's going to trap some warmth and give us a little bit of convection underneath here from the radiant heat of the fire. We could also use our reflective space blanket either underneath us with the reflective side up. We could put it on the inside of this tarp if we wanted to help reflect heat, or we could put it on the outside, on the back side of our fire. If we didn't have a fire wall or a fire backer, we could use that space blanket far enough away from the fire not to melt it, but close enough that it would reflect some heat back toward us and then be trapped with this canvas tarp. And the reason I prefer canvas tarps is not only because they're heavy duty, but because they do trap and hold heat very, very well. Again, they're easy to drag things around on. If I'm collecting debris, if I'm collecting sticks for fire, if I'm collecting smalls for firewood, I can pile all that stuff up on that tarp, wad it up, and drag it through the woods. And I don't have to worry about anything getting tore up in the short term. Again, this is for short-term stuff on my Rokon, but it's a very good example of what can be done even in a backpack, because a 6x8 canvas tarp like this from a hardware store doesn't really weigh all that much for the security that it provides, because I could throw this thing straight on the ground, fold it in half, lay in front of a long fire with a wool blanket, and as long as I'm dressed properly for the conditions and the ground's not soaking wet, I'm going to be fine for at least one night. All right, folks, well, I'm Dave Canterbury with Self-Reliance Outfitters in the Pathfinder School, and thank you for joining me for this quick video today on just a couple emergency pieces of gear that I carry on the Rokon when I'm out away from the homestead or away from a base camp doing some type of a trek or a scout where I may get hung up overnight, break down, something like that, or decide just to stay out there overnight. I've got plenty of stuff in that kit to keep me going, and really the majority of this stuff could be carried on my back if needs be, but having that conveyance makes it very simple to also travel tool heavy as well as cover heavy. And that's my main philosophy. Make sure that I can increase the level of the tools that I have and the level of my comfort by adding those items to conveyance is more important than adding a bunch of junk that you don't need. I appreciate your views. I appreciate your support. I thank you for everything you do for our school, for our family, and for our business, for all of our sponsors, instructors, affiliates, and friends, and I'll be back with another video as soon as I can. Thanks, guys.